Okay, let's unpack this. We all know that feeling, right? A broken heart. It's everywhere in our language, poetry, songs, even paintings. But what if it's not just a metaphor? What if that emotional pain could, literally impact your physical heart? In this deep dive, we're taking a really close look at this surprising connection between our most intense feelings and, well, our physical health. And specifically, how our mind's tendency to replay negative stuff can turn emotional distress into something much more serious.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it, how tightly the body and mind are actually linked. We're going to explore a very real medical condition. It's called broken heart syndrome. And then we'll connect that to something psychological called rumination, that relentless kind of looping cycle of negative thoughts. You'll see how these two things, which seem pretty separate, are actually deeply intertwined, and they really amplify suffering. We'll be looking at insights from medical observations, psychological research. Some studies even talk about it like a journey from a broken heart to obsessive thoughts.
Right. So our mission here in this deep dive is to help you understand not just what these things are, but crucially why they matter so much to your well-being. We'll look at how these persistent negative thoughts can almost act like a secondary injury to your system. And importantly, we want to equip you with some practical, expert-backed strategies on how to break free from these cycles. So let's start with this whole idea of a broken heart. I mean, poets have been on this for ages. Alfred Lord Tennyson, back in 1850, his poem In Memoriam, AHH, has that line, "Too common, never morning wore to evening, but some heart did break." And that phrase even popped up in Walter Langley's painting from 1894, "No morning came to evening, but someone's heart did break." It's just so deeply woven into how we talk about profound emotional pain.
It is. And while it's, a powerful poetic image, in medicine, broken heart syndrome is actually a thing. It's a real temporary weakening of the heart muscle. The medical terms are Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, or sometimes stress-induced cardiomyopathy. What causes it? Basically a sharp, sudden release of stress hormones. Think adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol. It's like your heart gets overwhelmed by this sudden chemical surge, the fight-or-flight response going into overdrive.
Wow. That's really incredible to think about, that our emotions can trigger such a physical, immediate response. So even though it's temporary, it sounds like the body is really sending a strong signal. Are the symptoms things people might just dismiss? Think, oh, I'm just stressed. Because you mentioned chest pain, shortness of breath, weakness. Those sound pretty major.
They're absolutely major, and it's critical, really critical, that these symptoms mean getting immediate medical attention. They can look exactly like a heart attack or something called unstable angina. You just can't tell the difference yourself. Now, the good news is Takotsubo is usually reversible. Patients often recover within weeks, but, and this is important, can happen again. That's recurrent Takotsubo. And in rare cases, it can lead to complications like heart failure or arrhythmias. So while it's often temporary, it's definitely a serious condition. It really highlights that direct physical impact of intense emotional stress.
It's fascinating. Even back then, 19th century, people seem to get the gravity of deep emotional distress, even without the fancy medical terms. Like the wise woman in Langley's painting, the advice associated with her, it still feels relevant today. Don't rush decisions. Don't do anything you'll regret later. Give yourself time. Time heals. Everything passes this too. It's sort of timeless comfort, isn't it?
It is, and that wisdom actually leads us perfectly into the mind's role here, specifically this thing called rumination. Put simply, rumination is that cycle of obsessive negative thoughts. You keep reliving past events, playing them over and over in your head, like a mental broken record.
Right, and this is where that secondary injury idea comes in. I find that parallel really striking, almost unsettling. In medicine, a secondary injury is when the body's own reaction to damage makes things worse. Are you saying our minds can kind of do the same thing? That looping back to a bad memory isn't just remembering, it's like reactivating the hurt, re-traumatizing ourselves, making it worse each time.
Exactly that. The key insight is that rumination isn't just feeling bad. It's actively training your brain to see everything through a negative lens. You're essentially reinforcing negative thought patterns, almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And MRI studies looking at stress and memory show how these stress-related memories leave a really deep imprint. Each replay strengthens those negative neural pathways.
Okay, I can see how incredibly damaging that could become over time. And you mentioned PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. People with PTSD often vividly re-experience trauma, right, as if it's happening now. Does rumination play a particularly big part for them?
Oh, absolutely. It's extremely pronounced in individuals with PTSD. For them, rumination can sometimes lead to this temporary kind of loss of connection with reality. They vividly re-experience the trauma feeling like it's happening right now, which is, as you can imagine, incredibly distressing and really reinforces that whole secondary injury effect we talked about.
So how does this constant mental replay then directly, hit our physical health, especially the heart? Is there something more going on biologically beyond just that initial hormone rush from the broken heart event itself?
Yes, there definitely is. When you ruminate constantly, those negative thoughts keep levels of cortisol and adrenaline high. And those are the very hormones we just discussed being involved in broken heart syndrome. So it's a sustained attack on your cardiovascular system. This prolonged emotional tension can also throw off the balance between your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, the fight or flight versus the rest and digest modes. When that balance is off long term, it significantly increases your risk of developing heart problems down the line.
That idea about the heart's adaptive mechanisms, it's like a muscle getting worn out from constant stress. Is that a way to think about it? And if you're prone to rumination, you're probably also more likely to feel depressed or anxious, which then in turn might make you more susceptible to something like broken heart syndrome. It really sounds like a truly vicious loop.
It absolutely is a vicious cycle. Rumination means constantly dwelling on the negative feelings, the suffering, why it happened, what might happen next. And this directly fuels depression and anxiety. It makes your emotional state worse because you're essentially stuck in the past, unable to focus on the present, and you start interpreting everything negatively. It breeds hopelessness. And the more you ruminate, the worse you feel. And the worse you feel, well, the more you ruminate. It just digs that trench of negativity deeper and deeper.
And you mentioned Dr. Peter Kinderman's research. It highlights that a key path from trauma or bad experiences to depression and anxiety is this tendency we can have towards self-reflection and self-blame. So it's that internal story we tell ourselves that really piles on the hurt, makes us victims, not just of what happened, but kind of victims of our own thinking patterns.
Exactly. Which is why, given how common and damaging rumination can be, it's so important to recognize when it's happening. If you have persistent, recurring negative memories that are really interfering with your life, that's a serious psychological issue. Seeking professional help, seeing a psychologist or a psychotherapist, that's a really crucial first step. They can help you figure out the root causes and teach you personalized ways to cope.
But it's also really empowering, isn't it, to know you're not just stuck. Like Dr. Kinderman said, although we cannot change a person's past history, it is possible to help change their mindset and move toward positive actions. Actions that can lessen the impact and reduce stress. So there are things you can actively do yourself alongside maybe getting professional help.
Yes, absolutely. You're highlighting a key point there. Take distraction, for instance. It sounds simple, but it can be incredibly effective. It's not just about avoiding the thoughts, though. It's about actively rerouting those brain pathways that keep leading you back into the negative loop. So finding activities that genuinely interrupt that flow.
That makes a lot of sense, like consciously building new mental roads. And what about remembering your own strength? That seems important too. Maybe taking time to recall times you did cope well with tough stuff. I guess friends and family could even help there, reminding you of positive things you might have forgotten.
Definitely. Remembering resilience is powerful. And yes, leaning on supportive people is great. And don't forget the body. Physical activity, making time for things you genuinely enjoy, things that bring pleasant feelings. Moving your body directly helps lower cortisol, boosts your mood, and crucially supports your cardiovascular health. It helps rebalance those stress hormones.
Okay, another practical one. Breaking down big, overwhelming problems, like into smaller, more manageable steps. Make a plan, even a tiny one, and just start moving. I guess even a little bit of forward motion could disrupt that feeling of being stuck in the rumination cycle.
Precisely. Action combats helplessness. And remember support systems, too. Just talking things through with trusted family or friends can offer new perspectives. It gets the thoughts out of your head, which helps break the cycle. And finally, things like mind-body techniques, breathing exercises, relaxation practices, they're invaluable for calming your nervous system right in the moment, helping restore that balance we talked about.
So really, the power of just awareness seems key here. Just recognizing, okay, I'm stuck in this loop. This is linked to the past. That awareness itself can start to reduce the stress, right? And help you shift your focus back to the present. Taking that mental energy away from reliving the past and putting it towards what you can actually influence now. So what's the big takeaway here for you listening?
Our deep dive today, I think, reveals something really profound. The thoughts you dwell on. They aren't just in your head. They have real, actual, tangible consequences for your physical body, for your heart health, your overall well-being, understanding broken heart syndrome, understanding rumination. It's not just about knowing the labels. It's about seeing how directly our inner world shapes our outer reality.
Yeah, and if you connect that to the bigger picture, it really underscores the immense power of our minds. Power not just to feel pain, but sadly, power to keep it going, to perpetuate it. But the flip side is it also empowers you. Knowing this means you know you can actively step in and change these processes. The ability to shift your focus, to ask for help, to engage in positive actions. That's not just about feeling better emotionally. It's genuinely about protecting your physical health, your physiology, and reclaiming your present moment from the grip of the past.
Which brings us to a final thought, maybe a question for you to consider. Knowing now just how closely linked your mental and physical states really are, and how easily these repetitive negative thoughts can take hold, what's one small, actionable step, something you could start today, to maybe interrupt a cycle of rumination in your own life and nurture your heart, both, literally and figuratively?